Okay, General LaCamera, welcome to ICAS Summer Symposium Veritas. This is Dr. Kim. We welcome you. General, the floor is yours. Before you
Okay,
start, I let my colleague Ching-Su introduce you. Ching-Su, go
Uh,
ahead.
this, Thank you, Dr. Kim. This session is being recorded. It is my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce General Paul J LaCamera. The General needs no introduction to this audience, so I will be very brief. On July 2nd, 2021, General LaCamera assumed command of United Nations Command, ROK U.S. Combined Forces Command, and United States Forces Korea. Before taking on this current assignment, General LaCamera was the commanding general of the United States Army's largest service component command, U.S. Army Pacific, headquartered in Fort Shafter, Hawaii, with portions of command forwarded, deployed, and based throughout the Indo-Pacific. The general took on numerous operations in the past, including Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan, multiple deployments in support of Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan, Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation New Dawn, and Operation Inherent Resolve in Iraq and Syria. General LaCamera spoke at the ICAS Fall Symposium Special 2022. General, welcome back to ICAS, sir.
Okay, General, it's all yours.
Okay, well, thank you for that kind introduction. And again, thanks for the opportunity to speak with you. And got a couple prepared comments, and then I'm prepared to answer your questions if we have time. So good morning, Institute of Korean American Studies leaders, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to Dr. Sung-Joo Kim and for your continued support of the U.S. Republic of Korea Alliance. It's a distinct honor to be part of this year's ICAS Summer Symposium Veritas event. My thanks also to those personnel who have worked hard to make these ICAS hosted symposiums, including this one, successful. Your efforts ensure that our experts and leaders with requisite experience and knowledge are able to engage in a valuable discussion about issues affecting the security situation on the Korean Peninsula, and I would also argue in Northeast Asia. And as we're finding out, what starts local becomes regional and is global, has global implications. And I think a lot of that is due in part to President Yoon's global pivotal state and the impact that it's making worldwide. I want to share my perspective on some of these challenges and also about how they present opportunities for the U.S. and Korea. I recently quoted that the Chinese character for crisis is the same as opportunity, but then I was corrected by my allies that it's the same in Hangul. So I think in each crisis, there's an opportunity. Every day as the commander of the United Nations Command, Combined Forces Command, U.S. Forces Korea, I directly observe the strength of the U.S. ROK Alliance in action. The two nations share common values and democratic norms, protect human rights, and abide by the rules-based international order. In fact, in 1950, it was first tested, and now it's currently being tested in Ukraine. These commonalities have allowed us to continue to strengthen and maintain our alliance over the course of the past 70 plus years. Common values also drive our continued commitment to protect our strategic interests in the region. I understand that ICAS advocates for these values, and its members are security-oriented professionals who subscribe to the tenet of peace through strength. This principle nests well with my Tri-Command priorities and our desired end state of peace and security on the Korean Peninsula, Northeast Asia, and the region. I appreciate that ICAS recognizes the impact of activities on the Korean Peninsula to the United States national security. I hope that my comments today contribute to a fruitful discussion. Today, I'll share my thoughts on the current state of the U.S. ROK Alliance, our annual combined and joint training exercise posture, our new theater-wide operations plan, U.S. ROK-Japan trilateral relations, and our efforts to grow our global network. On the first topic of the current state of the U.S. ROK Alliance, last week we commemorated the signing of the Armistice Agreement and the cessation of formal hostilities. It's been 71 years since the signing of the document, on July 27th, 1953. And we had 16 Korean War veterans travel to the JSA for that. And we had 51, I think the number was 51 family members. It was very powerful. We took time to recognize the millions of brave service members from the Republic of Korea and the United Nations Command, sending states who sacrificed to protect and defend the Republic of Korea. I was deeply honored to spend time with our Korean War veterans and their family members who were able to join us for the ceremony. The U.S. ROC Alliance was founded on the shared core values and sacrifice. It was forged in blood and maintained through an unwavering commitment. After more than 70 years, that alliance remains strong, and our continued mutual commitments are critical in maintaining peace and security on the peninsula and in the region. During the past 3 years, as the commander, I've absorbed historical events that demonstrate the continued strengthening of our alliance at the highest levels of our governments. In April 2023, President Joe Biden hosted President Yoon Suk Yeol for a state visit. During the visit, the two presidents reaffirmed the two nations' commitment to strengthening defense and security ties, expanding economic and environmental cooperations, and technology collaboration. They also issued the Washington Declaration, a bilateral commitment to develop an ever stronger mutual defense relationship and affirm their commitment to the combined defense posture under the U.S. ROC Mutual Defense Treaty. Annual training exercises and readiness. On the subject of training exercises and readiness, the U.S. ROC Alliance is the linchpin of peace and security in the region. At tactical, operational, and strategic levels, the ROC and U.S. military units on the peninsula maintain our combined readiness through our exercise and training posture. Our annual combined and joint training exercises are critical in maintaining our readiness. Regular combined joint multi-domain training aligns with my line of operation number 3, prepare for combat. And it's not just on the Korean Peninsula where we're training. We're sending forces, that participate in Cobra Gold in Thailand, Balikatan in the Philippines, Talisman Sabre in Australia, RIMPAC off the coast of Hawaii. So it's not just here on the Korean Peninsula that we have an opportunity to build readiness. And readiness is perishable. So we must continue to train and to maintain our fight tonight posture. As part of our regular exercise schedule, we conduct 2 large exercises annually, Freedom Shield in the spring and Ulchi Freedom Shield in the summer. Ulchi Freedom Shield includes the Ulchi portion, the participation of the ROC government, including the President of the Republic of Korea. And we're in the middle of that right now as we prepare conducting troop leading procedures, back briefs, and rehearsals. We've conducted these exercises for several decades and together with our United Nations Command member states and the ROC military. During that time, the threat environment has continued to change, but the alliance has continued to adapt to these changes. As we look to the future, we cannot have a failure of imagination. As the enemy capabilities continue to advance, the terrain continues to change due to the tremendous economic development of the Republic of Korea, and the friendly capabilities continue to advance. For these reasons, our operations must be updated. Our operations plan must be updated. We're in the process of updating our operations plan. It's one of the most consequential documents for our continued effort to maintain peace and security, and will drive our operations activities and investments each and every day. The updated O plan will shape the way we operate on the Korean Peninsula going forward. It will allow us to adjust our plans and operations according to real-time events. Democratic People's Republic of Korea is only 90 kilometers north of where I sit today, and our adversaries pose threats to our homelands. We must be prepared to deter, defend, and if required, defeat these threats. The ICBM threat that KJU is developing threatens the United States. And as I remind the United Nations member states, that if the United States can be reached, each one of their capitals can also be reached. And quite frankly, the meaning of that statement is that the Republic of Korea no longer has a monopoly on the threat. The continuing forward movement in the U.S. ROC-Japan trilateral relationship is also critical to our efforts to defending the homelands. In February 2024, KBS interview, President Yoon said it's more meaningful not only to cooperate against nuclear threats, but also to demonstrate joint leadership for the 3 countries to achieve world peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region and the global region in the future. During the Trilateral Chiefs of Defense meetings earlier this month, the ROC and Japanese Chiefs of Defense expressed their support to expand trilateral cooperation through exercises. The inaugural Freedom Edge 24-1 built a solid foundation for the new trilateral, multilateral, multi-domain exercise. The Freedom Edge exercise will strengthen our readiness, support extended deterrence, and demonstrate our combined resolve throughout the region. We've also held other trilateral exercises in multiple domains, and it's important to continue these efforts. We are gaining forward momentum in the trilateral participation in exercises, and we must continue the positive trajectory. And I also had the opportunity to sit in the tri-ministerial on this past Sunday with the Secretary of Defense, the Minister of Defense of both the Republic of Korea and Japan. Also advancing, restarting the Niveus Shield tabletop exercise. Restarting this TTX will help facilitate a trilateral discussion on prospective regional security situations that may impact each country's security interests. We should take advantage of limited collective opportunities to train with high-demand U.S. strategic assets. There is no substitute for realistic training for readiness and our credible deterrence. And as I talked about the exercises earlier, in all, we're working live, virtual, and constructive to continue to grow these and challenge us in all the different domains. Our ability to optimize our trilateral exercises in the region must outpace our adversaries. We're observing with concern the growing relationship that continues to develop between DPRK, PRC, and Russia. We must continue to train in order to maintain our ability to fight tonight. In addition to the U.S. ROC Alliance and the U.S. ROC-Japan trilateral relationship, the United Nations member states provide another powerful network that contribute to our ability to maintain peace and stability in the region. My line of operation to build coalitions is in the recognition of the need for coalitions in the modern political strategic environment. Broad coalitions bring international legitimacy and strategic depth to the mission. The United Nations Command member states include members of the United Nations Security Council, NATO, ICAS, ASEAN, and even BRICS. Member states are located on every continent but Antarctica. And for the United States, they are represented in all of our combatant commands, geographic combatant commands, which allows us to reach out and communicate with my fellow commanders. As it becomes more and more apparent that the world is getting smaller and what happens locally becomes regional and global very quickly, there's a growing interest in the United Nations Command. The United Nations Command will be holding an accession ceremony for Germany later this week as it joins the United Nations Command member states. So that's a preview. Please don't announce that. We'll put that out in the next 24 hours. But they have asked to join and we have approved it, and there'll be an accession ceremony tomorrow. As we look forward to the future of the United Nations Command, we will continue to expand the power of the global network, looking for ways to expand our ability to work with each other through our international agreements. In the art of war, Sun Tzu said, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. As the enemy and friendly situation continues to change, we will continue to adapt. We update our operations plan and continue our realistic training to maintain our combined combat readiness posture. Winston Churchill once said, there is only one thing worse than fighting with allies, and that's fighting without them. Working together sometimes creates challenges, but we also know that it also brings strategic depth. We are stronger together. We are brought together by our common values and held together by our unwavering commitment. Thank you for your positive impact on our alliance and your positive contribution to the discourse of impacts of the peninsula and the region and national security. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you today, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you very much, General. Thank you very much, General. Before we get into the Q&A, let me make a small comment. ICAS is not an agent of any government or foreign principal. Thank you. The floor is open. Tong Kim, go ahead.
Thank you for doing this, General. General, how comfortable are you about early warning systems available today against the North Korean attack?
am I?
Yes.
It's kind of I'm comfortable. I won't get into the specifics, but we're watching it. I mean, this is, as the fight's combined, it's joint, it's interagency, it's multi-domain, and the sensors that are out there, and our ability to see and the early warnings. There's a targeting cycle. We have to continue to use it, and we need to make sure everybody understands it. And we have to communicate. We have to constantly communicate, and with the turnover on all sides, it's one of the things that we test. And the good news is, as the adversary continues to conduct his research and development or his gray zone activities, I think the word provocations is overused. I think we have to be, internally, that we have to be very specific in what we're seeing. And we have to be prepared to react. And I think there's there's kind of levels. It's react, it's respond. We focus on that each and every day. I mean, fight tonight is not just a bumper sticker. It could be fight this afternoon based on any activities that are occurring. But I think, we've introduced the term gray zone activities and defining what we're seeing or the actions that are occurring. I think we have to be very specific, and the analysis that's conducted and the conversations that are having are absolutely critical to what that is. The inherent right of self-defense never goes away. So I feel that we're in that posture to react. But it's the response which requires thoughtful planning and consultation going forward that we constantly have to exercise and work through as we change out individuals and et cetera.
Thank you, General. Is Patrick Cronin out there?
Yes, Dr. Kim, I had
Go
trouble
ahead.
unmuting.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Thank you. Thank you, General, for your update. I would like to ask, sir, what impact you see from the new Joint Force headquarters in Jeju in Japan on your commands in Korea? Thank you.
The headquarters, and it's the headquarters. Well, it's not established yet, and I think it's the network, our network, the collaboration between us, Indo-PACOM, U.S. Forces, Japan, and the Japanese Self-Defense Forces. I see that. Think of it as constant improvement of your fighting position. It's a headquarters that will that will be upgunned, I guess, for lack of a better term, going forward. But I don't see a negative impact to it. I think it's a good impact.
Thank you, General. General Gregson, do you have a question? Skip. Oh, Chip.
I do. Thank you. General, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. From time to time, the issue of nuclear weapons on the peninsula is raised within the alliance and ricochets around the hallways of Washington. How do you assess the raw confidence in our guarantees at this point?
Well, the President of the United States, the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State, the national leadership, Indo-PACOM, current, previous, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, current, previous, myself, my predecessors, guaranteed the full range of our capabilities in the defense of the Republic of Korea. I cannot answer for the Korean people, nor can I answer for the Republic of Korea government, nor will I. I think that's something you all have to assess. That's a question you have to, we've said it. We've been here 73 years, 37,000 killed in action. We've got 28,000 plus on the peninsula. We've got family members here. We've been committed. That's up to the Korean people to decide whether they believe us or not. You can question my competence all day long. I wouldn't question our commitment, but that's a question for the South Korean people and the South Korean government.
Thank you, General. Larry Nix.
Yes, can you
Go
hear me?
ahead, Larry.
General, I know that one of the things our military does very much of is contingency planning about scenarios that our military perceives as either likely in the future or at least possible in the future. And planning is done with regard to these potential scenarios. Back at the beginning of the Iraq War, the Bush administration decided, as it was invading Iraq with US forces, to withdraw about 10,000 troops from South Korea and ship those troops, mainly ground troops, to the Middle East to participate in the operations in Iraq. Those troops were never returned to South Korea. That has brought the total US force structure down to the figure that you just referred to, approximately 28,000. Looking at the world today, in Ukraine, the battle reports recently paint an increasingly pessimistic picture of the Ukrainian military capabilities versus Russia. Putin, in the last few months, has issued direct threats against Finland, Poland, and Latvia. Now we have the Middle East, where, number one, our Navy, despite the underreporting in our press, our Navy is in a war in the Middle East right now with Iran's backed Houthis. Exchanges of fire take place every day between our ships in the Red Sea and the Houthi missile sites, where they are launching missiles against our Navy and against commercial shipping in the Red Sea. This is, again, daily, this is a war going on. Now, today, we have a new, I think, dangerous escalation. If you read what has happened in the last 24 hours with the Israeli actions, both in Iran and in Lebanon against Hezbollah. These scenarios these situations raise, it seems to me, possible scenarios that could in the future affect decisions US leadership might make with regard to US forces in Korea and the level of future US troop strength in Korea. Is there any thinking about this going on now in the Pentagon, in the Pacific Command, or in your command in Korea about how, if one of these scenarios breaks out into more open conflict, our military forces in Korea could be affected?
Thank you.
Sir, you broke up as you started I missed the beginning part of your question.
Well, I mentioned that one of the things I know the military and the Pentagon do a lot of.
No, I got all that. It was in the last minute as you started the question.
Pessimistic situation in the Ukraine, Putin's threats against 3 NATO countries adjacent or nearby to Ukraine, and the virtual war our Navy is in right now in the Red Sea with the Houthi rebels, and the escalation that just has taken place within the last 24 hours with regard to what the Israelis have done in Iran and in Lebanon. Now, if any of these breaks out into a much wider war, it seems to me the question becomes, will decisions have to be made like those who were made back during the invasion of Iraq to withdraw ground troops from Korea for operations in Iraq? Will decisions have to be looked at and decisions made that could affect U.S. force structure in South Korea? And is any thinking or contingency planning doing about any of these potential growing scenarios that we're seeing in the world today?
Thank you, Larry.
I mean, the simple answer is yes, sir. I mean, I look at everything that's going on each and every day. I'm in constant communication with Commander Indo-PACOM. I read the reports of what's going on in other places. I look at it, at the risk of not getting into too much operations here, but I look at it as a combat power equation, not troops on the ground. I'm agnostic. I'll use close air support for all you former Air Force personnel out there. Close air support's a mission, not a platform. So I'm agnostic as to what the capability is. If it's an F-16 or if it's an A-10 or it's a HIMARS or it's a, we have X number of targets and we need X number of shooters to be able to do that. So I wouldn't focus on boots on the ground and the size. I would look at it, what's the mission and what's the combat power, aggregate, multi-domain. And so, as I stated, joint combined interagency multi-domain, which means to me, our capabilities in space, cyber, special operations, ground, Navy. The fight is no longer, I think there's what a lot of folks, a lot of veterans in Korea and whatnot, the fight is no longer linear. It's no longer just from the north and ground. The capabilities that KJU and others are developing are all domain, and we have to look at it, in a different way. And so resources are limited, which goes back to coalitions and what other countries can provide. Mike, I've been on the battlefield with U.S. only forces, and I've been on the battlefield with coalition forces. And I go back to my quote on Winston Churchill, and this is a combined headquarters. I've got 2 combined headquarters and 1 joint. So I wouldn't look at it as, we pulled X number of troops off. It's what capabilities do we have and what capabilities can we get here quickly? And that's a shell game. I've got a floor, not a ceiling, and we exercise that. And I've gotten great support from the functional combatant commands and my higher headquarters on doing that. And that's what we exercise, going forward. So I wouldn't count boots or tanks or strikers. I would count combat power, and combat power is an aggregate and in all the domains in our ability to respond. And that's, we exchanged, we used to have an armor unit here. Now we rotate strikers in here. But then we do emergency deployment readiness exercises with armor. Last year, we sailed the armor off down to Talisman Sabre. So again, we're looking at multiple ways to solve the problem. And if the only tool in your kit bag is a hammer, then all your problems look like nails. And we've got lots of tools in our kit bag, and we try to exercise those each and every day. If that answers your question, sir.
Thank you, General. Sang-ho Song, go ahead. Song Sang-ho, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for doing this, General. I have two questions. One is we understand that a North Korean nuclear attack or use scenario will be incorporated in the Allies' upcoming US UFS exercise in August. So can you explain how that will be different from usual conventional scenario exercises and how this will help strengthen nuclear deterrence? My second question is, this is an election season, so there has been much talk about the future of the U.S. forces Korea. Some talk about a USFK troop reduction. Some talk about pullout. Some say there should be a realignment of the U.S. forces Korea to focus more on Chinese threats. So what do you think about all these discussions in this election season? Thank you.
The answer to your first question is no, it's not. That's not in the scenario. And the answer to your second question is that's a future policy decision. I will make the case of what's needed here, and I'm not going to get into hypotheticals. You know, again, I as I stated in my remarks, the threat, you know, it's not just DPRK that threatens the Republic of Korea. And you know, there's a misconception out there. The the Mutual Defense Treaty of the United States and the Republic of Korea does not name an adversary. So we are focused on all the threats to the Republic of Korea.
General, just for clarification, so you're saying that the UFS exercise this month is not about nuclear attack scenario from North Korea? That was actually what was reported in the media and what probably said by the South Korean officials at the Minister of National Defense.
I would refer you to the recently released statement on the Nuclear Consultative Group, TTX, which is not part of my exercise.
Thank you.
Thank you, General. C.S. Lee, Chung-Soo, go ahead.
Thank you, General. I don't know if you can talk any further about United Nations Command that you're going to announce tomorrow, but my question is how many nations are member of, and is it approved, blessed by the UN?
We're not part of the United Nations. It's approved and consulted with, approved by the U.S. and ROC governments.
Thank you, General.
There's no affiliation with the United Nations.
Thank you, General.
Thank you.
Josh Smith. Josh.
Yeah, good morning, General. You mentioned gray zone operations by North Korea earlier, I believe. I was wondering what you think their intention are with those and whether you anticipate that, potentially escalating. Thank you.
Well, I mean, to me, what does KJU want? He wants sanction relief, right? He wants to preserve and be able to have a fourth generation Kim leader. So regime survivability. He wants to be recognized as a nuclear power, and he wants strategic independence. I think that's what his end states are.
General Sharp. Skip, do you have a question? General Sharp?
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. Hey, Paul, good evening. Can you just expand a little bit on Nuclear Planning Group and the successes so far and where you see that headed in the future, not only between the United States and the Republic of Korea, but potentially Japan? Can you just talk a little bit about the future of that group and the successes you've seen so far in that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Good to see you. Yeah, I mean, right now we have Iron Mace going on. I think that's what may be being conflated with Ultra Freedom Shield. And so I think when you go back to the Washington Declaration, nuclear consultative group and the various meetings that have been occurring and working with the different commands, it's very positive. The threat is, as we've talked about, the threat is real, and we're continuing to work through the different scenarios and what the U.S. As the president has guaranteed, the full range of U.S. capabilities to come to the defense of the Republic of Korea. So all very positive, moving in the right direction. Lots of people watching to see where it's going and whatnot. But a lot of this is, as you know, we train for certainty, we educate for uncertainty, and all that's going on, and the collaboration, I think, is excellent. Going forward, and we'll work through multiple scenarios of how we're going to do this and what the collaboration is going to be, and going forward. So I think it's positive. And when you think of how quickly this has occurred, it's the same thing with the trilateral relationship with Japan and Korea. The leadership being demonstrated at the country level, between the two presidents and the prime minister have really been driving things forward in all these domains, and especially along the nuclear piece. Very positive.
So just to follow on to that, Paul, based on your last comment, the trilateral stuff, which has been fantastic. I mean, it really, really has. Is that enduring? Do you have any fears that changes of, administrations in Korea or Japan, or is it, is it incorporated so much in the processes and everything is in place that you're fairly confident it will endure?
If I could predict the future, I would head to Vegas. But I mean, like everything, sir, all of our alliances, our second line of operation is we can't take the alliance for granted, and so there's always got to be care and feeding of it. And as the previous gentleman asked the question of other scenarios, we have mutual defense treaties, and there's limited resources, and we have to work through this. Some of the questions I can't answer. I mean, that's between, the United States has to have the humility to know that we're not going to fix the historical differences or history. The comment that I made in open testimony is that World War II Imperial Japan is not the existential threat to the Republic of Korea, but KJU with nuclear weapons pointed at South Korea and Japan and the United States is. And that's my focus is on defending the Republic of Korea. And actually, our number one line of operation is defend the homelands. There's an S on the end of it, because with each of the commands, it's not just the Republic of Korea. The threat is not just to the Republic of Korea, it's to the United States and the United Nations member states. So, as you know, sir, better than I do, it's constant care and feeding and working through this. We make the argument of what the threat is, and the policymakers will make the policy, and we'll drive the strategy from that. It's heartening to watch, though, at the lower level, the collaboration, the training that the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, guardians, and civilians are getting out of this trilateral relationship. And instead of focusing on the differences, we have to focus on the similarities, what we have in common, as I stated at the beginning of this. And then everybody just needs to be an adult and understand the countries act in their own best interest. And we don't make excuses for that. And I think, having adult conversations and not getting drug into, some of the mudslinging is what I've encouraged, our formation to do. And let's focus on security, and let's focus on the common enemy, common threat to our standard of living, our quality, who we are as a world. It's really the international rules-based order versus a new world order that exists out there. As policymakers make changes, we'll make the argument of why we need to focus on this particular threat.
Well,
Thank you, General.
Thanks for your leadership
Very
on that.
good.
I mean, this has gone further than any of us on this would have predicted, and I really do credit a lot of it is to your leaderships and the commands, understanding what is needed capability-wise to be able to deter not only North Korea but China and Russia and others. So thanks, and thank you.
Larry, next, do you have follow-up question?
Yes, one quick question. In January, U.S. officials were quoted that North Korea was supplying Russia with over 1 million artillery shells. In April, the South Korean defense minister was quoted as upping that figure to over 3 million artillery shells that North Korea is supplying to Russia. At that rate, it could well be now that we're talking about up to 6 million artillery shells that the North Koreans have been supplying to Russia. My question is, what are the North Koreans getting in return directly from the Russians? I know there have been reports of numerous Russian oil tankers off North Korea's east coast. So I assume oil is one of the things that North Korea is getting in much larger quantities than it had been getting under the previous more effective UN sanctions. But are the North Koreans getting anything else right now from the Russians? And also, do we have any information as to how the North Korean government is using this greater amount of oil, whether it's for civilian economic purposes, or is most of it going into the military for military purposes, the oil?
Thank you, Larry.
All great questions, sir. I won't go into the specifics, but I will tell you that if you look at the elements of national power, right, diplomatic, information, military, economic, what we've added is intelligence, law enforcement, T for technology, and C for commercial. And we're monitoring, all the things that are coming in, and looking at how he is adjusting, going forward. Is he building an air force, or is his theater ballistic missiles? If you look at fires as an element of one of the warfighting functions, does it matter if it comes off an airplane or if it comes off a TEL? It's still a capability. And so, we're looking at all that. And, the fact that, when I was here in the late 90s and, the million people died of starvation, reportedly, during the arduous march, that was 20 years ago, or 20 plus years ago, and how they, were able to survive through that, and exacerbated by the fall of the Soviet Union and the loss of that. We're looking at what's coming back, through, and what's he getting by sending this equipment there? Is he getting his stuff tested in that environment, going forward? So the beauty of our adversaries are they tell us exactly what they're going to do, and then we act surprised when they do it. We are monitoring what that comes in. And as I go back to my comment earlier about knowing the enemy, understanding the capabilities that that he has, he's clearly getting diplomatic support from both PRC and Russia in the United Nations, because we're not able to get any additional UNSCRs through. He's getting information support. There's a military support, and then there's the economic. But COVID allowed KJU to consolidate power, to consolidate his economy, and now this relationship with Russia and with PRC, is allowing him to continue on his path to what I told you what his previous end states were. I won't get into the specifics of what exactly is coming in, though.
Thank you, General. Sang-ho, do you have a fresh question?
I have one more question. As you know, North Korea has sent hundreds of trash balloons, and in response, South Korea conducted louder speaker propaganda broadcasts along the border. So how do you see this kind of chain reaction, and do you have any concern about the potential risk of tension escalation? And as a UNC commander, do you think that both sides should refrain from such tit for tat responses? Thank you.
It's the chicken or the egg, right? Which came first? We've had a lot of activities that could be taken as a pretext. He's had some activities. We're watching each one of them going forward, and I won't comment on sovereign decisions by the Republic of Korea.
Thank you, General. He did. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Kim, and thank you, General, for sharing your insight. My name is Hee Jae-jung. I'm a student at Azusa Pacific University. And my question is, as North Korea's military provocations intensify, several people argue that South Korea needs nuclear armament. And what is your view on South Korea's nuclear armament? Thank you.
What's my view on South Korean nuclear armament?
Yes.
You need to ask South Koreans.
Okay.
I'm not going to answer the question of would the United States trade Los Angeles or a city for Seoul. That's not and that's a sovereign decision that the Republic of Korea has to make based on the facts bearing on the problem and the costs of having that.
Very good.
Not my decision.
Okay, Chung-Soo, do you have a fresh question?
Okay, so the President Putin has warned that if there was a threat to the Russian territory and security, he will have no choice but to engage in the nuclear defense war. And the United States is planning to plant intermissile continental nuclear weapon in Germany. We already did that in Poland and Romania. And the nuclear treaty, International Continental Ballistic Treaty, has been canceled by President Trump and subsequent administrations. So do you worry about possible nuclear war in Europe?
I worry more about nuclear war here. Yes, I mean, don't we all? Yeah, I think that we are in my opinion, we're in an inflection point in history. I'm sure the academics or somebody will come up with, not a Cold War, whatever the moniker is going to be. We're at, in my opinion, it's the New World Order challenging the international rules-based order, and large-scale combat operations. And I think one of the gentlemen said earlier, you think of the cost of the fighting, of the number of casualties that just aren't being reported. When you look at the devastation, of the fighting in the Middle East, our fighting in the Middle East, and the countries that we fought in, what we're seeing going on in Gaza, what we're seeing going on in Europe, there's a lot at stake, and there's a lot at stake here in Northeast Asia, and the size of these weapons, the destruction capability it should be troubling. We need to find ways to lower the temperature. and find diplomatic solutions going forward. The military is we're a means to an end, not an end to itself. We're not going to kill our way out of it. He's not going to kill his way out of it. That's not how it works. At least that's my experience. So yeah, I think we should be concerned. And I think we're at an inflection point in history, and well above my pay grade. Our focus is on being prepared to execute the policies and the missions that we're given. The term tactical nuclear weapon doesn't make me feel any better. Still a nuclear weapon. But don't forget chemical and biological that's out there too.
Okay, Michael Frenchek, last one.
Yes, sir. Bringing it back to where you started about provocations. How do you define and differentiate and respond to provocations versus reactions by the adversary as well as our allies? And then how is the strengthening ROC-US alliance and the strengthening capabilities of the UN Command affecting the deterrence of further escalation of those actions?
Well, reaction's an easy answer. You shoot at me, I shoot back at you. It's instantaneous. The inherent right of self-defense never goes away. Responses are more deliberate, through analysis of what we're seeing. Is it research and development? Is it a provocation? Is it internal messaging? Is it external messaging? Who's the intended audience for the action? But the inherent right of self-defense never goes away. So that's an easy one. Reaction is reacting to the threat, eliminating the threat, and then, the guidance is de-escalate. Sometimes you have to escalate to de-escalate. That's this is probably a much longer conversation, but different scenarios and training, and the reason why we have men and women along standing watch 24/7 is just for that. And then the response is a little bit more deliberate, requires consultation and collaboration, and making sure that we have lots of arrows in our quiver. As I stated earlier, what lever do we pull? Not all our problems are nails, so therefore not all our solutions are hammers in our kit bag, and we have lots of them, not just between the U.S., the Republic of Korea, but others who have a vested interest in the Republic of Korea.
Okay, last question, Sang-ho.
Thank you. You just touched on the alignment between North Korea and Russia, but what do you think about the direct security implications about the alignment on the Korean Peninsula security? And how the allies are kind of working together to address the challenges from the alignment?
Yeah, I think history is instructive, not a blueprint. This relationship goes back to the end of World War II, and it was Kim Il-sung and Mao who went to Stalin and asked for permission to invade. And so Russia's always played a role, and that's ebbed and flowed over history. And is it a how deep is the relationship? He's providing support, and what that support, looking at what that support is a top priority between him and what she is providing and whatnot. It all goes together. It's we think we're the only ones that have allies, partners, and friends. DPRK has allies, partners, and friends. And what does that mean going forward? I think it has to all be taken into account. It's the world, as that recently at Shangri-La, it was almost every speaker, talked about it. The world's getting smaller, not larger. The interconnectedness, COVID should have taught us that, just watching the spread of it. But what starts local goes regional and global very quickly. And that's what we're seeing is the interconnectedness of the world. And again, I go back to the inflection point of a new world order versus the rules-based order that's being challenged, going forward. And as I stated, it's, who else are his allies, partners, and friends? What other support? And we always look at it from just the M. You got to look at it from the D, the I, the M, the E, and the other ones that I threw in there, the intelligence that others might provide, the technological support that others might provide, the commercial. And that could be that they give it to him or he takes it, given his cyber capability. Because we spent a lot of time focusing on this nuclear capability, but he also has non-lethal capabilities too that can't be taken for granted. And, all that going forward. So again, the fight or the ability to maintain peace and security is all the elements. So it's combined, it's joint, it's interagency. That's the all elements of national power, and it's multi-domain. And that's from the bottom of the ocean all the way up to, the stars. And we got to think differently about this. We have to think of how we're going to synchronize, not deconflict, but synchronize and manage some of these high demand, low density items, going forward. So it's complicated, and oversimplification can get us in trouble if we're not careful.
Well, General, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, time is up and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, General. We'll get back to you. We appreciate
Thank you.
General.
Thank you.
Let's give General applause.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.